Hey there, people! So today I'm bringing you another episode in my Terraria Magic Weapons series. This is my other Magic Weapons guide covering 12 magic weapons that are difficult to categorize, including what's available on which platforms. This includes some of the best and most powerful magic class weapons in the game for mages. We'll cover the stats, how to get them, crafting recipes where applicable. First thing I'm going to talk about is that none of these are exclusively pre-hard mode. I basically covered all pre-hard mode magic weapons in previous guides. There is one that's sort of an exception on a couple of platforms. It is pre-hard mode. That's going to be later on though. First, I'm going to talk about three. There's just three that are available on all platforms, and these three are all hard mode only. First of all, the Magic Dagger. It acts just like throwing knives, but it's magic. It uses mana instead of having a stack of knives. It, as you can see, pierces through one enemy to hit a second. Yeah, and it of course does far more damage than your regular throwing knives that you get at the beginning of the game, as you can see. It's 40 base damage, uses 6 mana, has an insanely fast 8 use time, but it's not auto fire, so you have to click. It'll basically fire almost as fast as you can click. You can throw as many as you have mana for, so I have a decent amount of mana, so I can keep throwing them pretty fast, as you can see. The knives fly straight and then drop, which you can also see. And again, there's that piercing effect. And yeah, that's basically it. It's a 1 in 7 chance to drop from your sort of regular mimics, rather than there's no biome specific mimics on some of the platforms, of course, so your regular mimics only will drop these. Now, moving along to the next one. The next one is craftable, so I've basically just prepared the ingredients. The magical harp auto fires ricocheting, piercing musical note projectiles that last about 4 seconds. Let's go ahead and show you how to make this. First of all, you're going to need to buy a harp from your wizard. That's this guy here. He doesn't usually have a party hat on. It just happens to be party time in my world today. You'll need to buy a harp like this from him. You'll also need some crystal shards, souls of night, and souls of sight. The recipe does vary slightly by platform. Pre-update, you need 25 crystal shards, 12 souls of night, and 20 souls of sight. But since the update, as you can see, you need 20 crystal shards, 8 souls of night, and 15 souls of sight with your harp, which you'll need on either one of those. And you go to your hard mode anvil. Anvil has to be mithril or orichalcum anvil. Combine those materials, you get your magical harp. And as I was saying, it fires musical notes. And it actually, the speed varies according to whether it's closer, whether your cursor is closer to you or farther away. You can see, if I'm close, fires slow. If I'm far, fires fast. There's advantages to both of those, of course. If I fire this slowly, it's going to hit those guys a whole bunch of times because it's traveling slowly through them. So that's good against larger enemies, multi-segmented enemies. Hopefully aren't moving too fast. But if you're trying to hit somebody farther away, somebody who's moving faster, you might want to click farther away and shoot those faster. You get the idea. But this can actually be very incredibly powerful because it's unlimited piercing and also ricochets. It bounces off blocks. And it will bounce and ricochet and pierce unlimited times until it disappears. It does only last a certain amount of few seconds. Yeah, it's about 4 seconds that one of these will last. So it doesn't last forever. But and that'll affect how fast you want to fire it as well. But because of that piercing effect particularly, it can actually become very, very powerful. It's only 32 base damage, but because of those multiple hits, it can be very useful. It uses 4 mana, has a 12 use time, and this is actually auto fire, by the way, as well as being sort of amusing sound-wise. You can just hold down fire, and that also makes it quite useful too. These musical notes do produce a little bit of light. They are not affected by gravity. And that's about it. So that's a good one as well. Now moving on to the next one. Next one is the Unholy Trident. Fires powerful, fast-moving tridents, as you can see. These will pierce through 2 enemies and hit a third, which makes it reasonably powerful. It's not unlimited piercing like the last one, but reasonably powerful with that piercing ability. The base damage, as you can see, is higher. So the weapon itself also damages enemies, which is unusual for a magic weapon. It acts sort of like a melee weapon in that the weapon itself actually damages as well as the projectile. Anyway, it does 65 base damage, uses 14 mana before the update. Since the update, that's been changed to 73 base damage and 25 mana. So the damage is a little higher since the update, but the mana cost is a lot higher. It has a 1 in 30 chance to drop from red devils in the underworld after defeating any one mechanical boss. So actually those, as I said, are the only 3 that are on all platforms, interestingly enough. And unusually for my procedure, I'm going to talk about 2 that are currently still PC only. They were added since the original 1.3 update, so they haven't been added to the other updated platforms now. There's just 2 of those, so I'm going to get them out of the way. First one is the Sky Fracture. Fires a burst of 3 energy swords from actually behind the player towards the cursor. Let's go ahead and craft that first, just so you know what I'm talking about. Sky Fracture uses a magic missile, which is an older magic weapon that you find in pre-hard mode in the dungeon, in the chest there. So you'll need a magic missile plus 2 light shards and 16 souls of light. You can then craft your Sky Fracture, and it's a pretty cool weapon. As I say, fires bursts of 3 swords. And they do hit independently, as you can see. And they do fire technically from slightly behind the player towards the cursor location. Hit separately, do 38 base damage, use 14 mana per burst. And it's a very fast use time, 11 use time. It is auto fire, as you can see here. And unusually, one of the things that makes this more powerful, most weapons have a default 4% critical strike chance. This has a 24% critical strike chance. So you can see it scores critical hits reasonably often, and that's without any boosts. I'm not wearing any gear right now, just my wings. So without any boosts, it's already scoring critical hits fairly often. Of course, if you increase your critical hit chance further, basically you effectively double the damage output of the weapon potentially. And yeah, that, as I say, just gave you the crafting recipe. And that also needs to be crafted out of hard mode mithril or orichalcum anvil. But you can get that right from the beginning of hard mode, so that makes that quite useful as well. Next one is the Spirit Flame. This is the only other one that's currently PC only. Summons purple flames which hover and then home in on nearby enemies. So I'll show you the crafting for that first as well in this case. You're going to need a Desert Spirit Lamp, which you get from Desert Spirits in generally underground Corruption and Crimson deserts. Now, the Desert Spirit Lamp is available on all the updated platforms since the 1.3 update, but you're going to need Forbidden Fragments. These were added since the original 1.3 update, so they are currently, the Forbidden Fragments are still PC only. They're from Sand Elementals, which are a PC exclusive enemy for now. Probably that stuff will come to other platforms at some point. And you'll also need 12 Souls of Night. So Desert Spirit Lamp, 2 Forbidden Fragments, 12 Souls of Night. Again, hard mode. I keep getting that one, mixing that one up. Mithril or orichalcum anvil. That's why I keep doing that. And you can craft your Spirit Flame. Bam. There you go. Now you'll notice they're not doing anything. They just hover there until there's an enemy nearby. So let's put some enemies nearby. And then they chase the enemy. So you can have up to 5 of these active at a time. If you then create a 6th one, it'll just replace the first one. Anyway, you get the idea. Pretty powerful, as you can see. It's an 85 base damage, uses 18 mana, has a 29 use time. It is auto fire. As you can see, until you have an actual enemy nearby, I mean, there's a chance it'll just appear where the dummies are, but otherwise it's only when an enemy comes nearby that it chases them effectively. So, yeah, those flames also do cause a small explosion, you may or may not have noticed, when they actually hit an enemy, and that does have an area effect, small area effect. So keep that in mind as well. That can make it a little bit useful. And yeah, that's on impact that it has that little area effect weapon. So there were 7 more. Ooh, we're gonna need a few of those. Whoops, I accidentally stepped on the button. So as you can see, actually quite a powerful weapon. But yeah, there were 7 more weapons that were added in the 1.3 update that are not PC exclusive. So here they are. There's the Medusa Head, the Shadowflame Hex Doll, the Crystal Serpent, the Toxic Flask, the Nebula Arcanum, of course, the Nebula Blaze, and the last Prism. So we're going to talk about those ones now. So the Medusa Head was available since the 1.3 update. This is the exception I was talking about, that when it was originally added in the 1.3 update, it was available in pre-hard mode, which actually is where I got mine, because this world goes way back. And so it was available in pre-hard mode from the 1.3 update originally, but then after the 1.3 update on PC, it was changed so that the enemy it comes from and the weapon are now hard mode only. So the effect that has is that on the updated consoles, PS4 and Xbox One, because they got the 1.3 equivalent update, this is available in pre-hard mode on those, but on PC, it's now hard mode only. So that's kind of a weird situation because it's not the same across all quote-unquote updated platforms. And probably when the update comes to mobile, this will be the same as the consoles currently. And then eventually, hopefully, all of those will get updated to the same place as PC, and then it'll become hard mode only. But for now, on the 1.3 equivalent ones, it's pre-hard mode, and on PC for now, it's hard mode. So it is a chargeable weapon. You can hold it. Yeah, there's a maximum. It eventually times out. But basically, you can do just a tap. Doesn't seem to hit the dummies, actually. Let's see if we charge it. No, it doesn't seem to actually work against the dummies. That's interesting. It's an area effect weapon, though, so basically you can tap it, and it will do, you know, the regular amount of damage. Bam. If I charge it, though, 1 second doubles the damage. 3 seconds will actually triple the damage. As you can sort of see there. And yeah, so that makes it effectively, you know, it can be quite powerful if you charge it up. So, and the damage values also vary according to where you are in the updates. So, because it's that area effect and it hits multiple targets and also multiple segments at the same time, that makes it good versus invasions and segmented enemies. And yeah, so it can actually be useful against the Destroyer, but that's particular PC on PC because it's more powerful on PC. So what happened, this weapon is dropped by Medusa. It's Medusa's head, so it's dropped by the Medusa enemy in Marble Caves. Again, on currently the sort of 1.3 equivalent, which is PS4 and Xbox One, probably will be on mobile when it first comes along. It is available in pre-hard mode, the Medusa enemy and the weapon, and PC it's only available in hard mode that the Medusa enemy will show up, and it's in Marble Caves that the Medusa enemy shows up on all of those. Anyway, the earlier sort of 1.3 equivalent ones, it does 28 base damage and uses 8 mana, but since it was further updated on PC, on the PC version, it now does 45 base damage and uses 10 mana. So it's actually been buffed quite nicely to make it, you know, a useful weapon in hard mode. And with that area effect, it can actually be quite useful. So let's move along, though. I babbled about that long enough. The Shadowflame Hex Doll. The rest of these are available, not just available, but, you know, basically the same or similar, and hard mode only on all updated platforms. So Shadowflame Hex Doll fires curving purple tentacle-like projectiles. As you can see, if you just fire it once, it fires like 3. If you hold it down, it is auto-fire. You can get like up to 7 of those going. And as you can see, it also inflicts the Shadow Flame debuff. So this is pretty reasonably powerful. It does 40 base damage, uses 6 mana, has a 20 use time. And yeah, it's kind of a tentacle-like thing, so, you know, I guess depends what you're into. It's a 1 in 6 chance to drop from Goblin Summoners during a hard mode Goblin invasion. If I recall correctly, I didn't put this in my note. I believe that increases to a 1 in 3 chance to drop if you're in expert mode. Next one, Crystal Serpent. Fires a pink projectile, which shatters, explodes, sort of shatters, explodes. Yeah, the explosion itself I don't think does any actual damage. It's the little fragments that come off of it that do. So it explodes or shatters into smaller sparks on impact, does 40 base damage, uses 9 mana, has a 28 use time. So the sparks themselves will actually ricochet. You notice the projectile does not. It explodes on contact with a block, but the sparks will ricochet off of surfaces. And so those do a reasonable amount of damage. On average, they actually do slightly less damage. It's between half to the full amount. It's kind of a random value. So on average, those sparks are going to do slightly less damage than the original projectile itself. But as you can see, a little bit of a area effect, and it actually kind of varies how many times it hits the original target as well. But anyway, you get that. It's a 1 in 200 chance to get that when fishing in the Hallow, and that's at any depth, apparently. Moving along again, though, the Toxic Flask acts like a throwing weapon. Literally, you throw what appears to be a flask, but it's fueled by mana rather than having a bunch of flasks. And as you can see, it creates a sort of toxic cloud on impact. So it will explode whether it hits... I defeated my 50th bunny. It will explode whether it hits a surface or an enemy, and it has an area effect that causes some constant damage for about 1 or 2 seconds. And it does 46 base damage, uses 30 mana, has a 27 use time. And that area effect is what makes it powerful against, you know, large enemies like bosses, particularly in a confined space, particularly because of that cloud effect. That's where it's going to be at its best. And it's a 1 in 40 chance for that to be dropped by the Dr. Manfly enemy during solar eclipses, and he only appears after you've defeated Plantera. That chance increases to 3 in 80 that Dr. Manfly will drop the Toxic Flask in expert mode. Now, we're already getting, because there aren't a lot of things that I'm covering in this particular one, we're getting towards the end of the game now on the updated platform. So this is post end of the game at this point on the non-updated platforms, but you can't get this on those anyway. On the updated platforms, you can get the Nebula Arcanum and the Nebula Blaze. You'll have to choose between them at first, probably. The Nebula Arcanum fires a swirling orb, which explodes. On the third impact, actually, it pierces 2 enemies and then explodes on impact with the third one. And also it will explode after 11 seconds if it doesn't hit 3 times by then. It also homes in on enemies, actually. You can see it moves kind of slowly, so it's not like as super powerful as a homing weapon, but that area effect explosion and the fact that it does pierce and the fact that it is homing do make it quite powerful. It has a 70 base damage, uses 30 mana, 30 use time, and it is crafted from 18 Nebula fragments at an Ancient Manipulator. The explosions and sparks cause significant damage after that explosion occurs as well. So as you can see, can be quite powerful. Anyway, same 18 Nebula fragments at an Ancient Manipulator. And of course, you get your Nebula fragments from the Nebula Pillar during the Celestial events. That's after you defeat the Lunatic Cultist. Then you need to defeat the Nebula Pillar to get this, and the other one is the Nebula Blaze. They're crafted from the same thing, and you probably won't get enough fragments defeating it just once to craft them both, so take your pick. Yeah, these are actually both auto-fire. That's important to keep in mind as well. So the Nebula Blaze auto-fires a fast-moving pink projectile. It's inaccurate. You can see where my cursor is. It'll just kind of randomly fire somewhere around there. And it fires a... these projectiles do also home in on enemies. But as you can see, they move much faster, so that's where, you know, you're going to have to take your pick depending on your circumstances. The Nebula Arcanum technically can do more damage per second, but the Nebula Blaze is going to be probably easier against crowds because it, you know, moves faster. They're both homing weapons. And this also has a 1 in 5 chance to fire a larger blue projectile, which you can see, well, you run out of mana pretty quickly if you don't have the gear on. It has a 1 in 5 chance to fire a larger, faster blue projectile that does triple the normal damage. So you can see that the first one out of those actually. Every so often it fires a blue one that does triple the damage and is bigger. This has a 130 base damage. So the base damage is higher, uses only 18 mana versus 30 for the Nebula Arcanum, and has a 15 use time, so it fires faster. But because it doesn't have that area effect, explosion, and so on, the Nebula Arcanum can actually do more damage, but this is going to be probably better for crowd control, particularly, and also faster moving enemies in general. Anyway, same 18 Nebula fragments at the Ancient Manipulator, and we will move along to the last Prism. So, the last Prism is arguably one of, if not the, most powerful magic weapons in the game. Fires a spread out beam, starts as 6 beams actually, which gradually concentrate into one very powerful massive beam, and you can see it burns through mana so fast that without my gear, I basically don't even get there. But it takes about 3 seconds to converge. Those beams gradually converge into one massive beam. The initial beams do the quoted base damage, which is 100, but the converged giant white beam does triple, so that's 300 damage. It uses 12 mana, has a 10 use time. It actually hits 12 times per second and has, I think it's unlimited piercing. So you can kind of see the massive beam just for a second there. I believe it's unlimited piercing, so that's also one of the things that makes it so incredibly powerful. 100 base damage. Once you get through the 3 seconds to converge the beam, it increases to 300 and does 12 hits per second. Mana use also increases as it converges, so watch the meter there in the top right closely. You can see it starts to burn through. As soon as it gets near convergence, it really, really burns through mana. And it's a 1 in 9 chance for that to drop from the Moonlord. So let's show you some of these in action. I got my gear all ready to go here. And yeah, let's toss a couple of these in as well. Yeah, I don't think the Medusa Head is going to be super useful where I'm going. Obviously the banners aren't going to be too useful. So let's see, we can fit one more thing in here. What's going to be the most fun? Oh god, a Solar Eclipse. Alright. Well, let's get those guys with the Sky Fracture. Reasonably powerful. But I want to have a little fun with a bunch of stuff. So, interesting timing for a Solar Eclipse, I must say. So you can see, I mean, Magic Dagger is an early hard mode weapon. It's going to be good at early hard mode, but it's not great at this point. So let's switch over to the Magical Harp. Does alright, does alright. And yeah, it's obviously, you know, I was firing some of those slowly on purpose. But that's almost like a, you know, stakes to shoot those vampires. Obviously it doesn't have the bonus effect, but similar look, let's say. So yeah, this is good against, you know, simply firing at a particular enemy. And there's Dr. Manfly, so he is also using those toxic flasks. So yeah, I mean, I was going to go fight a pillar, but whatever. Here's our Shadowflame Hex Doll. Well, that's going to be good against, you know, having a bunch of these guys. But these guys are post-Plantera enemies, so this is still a relatively early weapon. So let's move along a little further. Crystal Serpent. That little explosion effect is going to make this fairly useful. Oh yes, the Wyvern actually is kind of perfect for this. Showcase that sort of, it's not piercing, but the explosive effect. That's where you want to shoot him right in the face, because he's going to dive at you, so that you can hit multiple parts of him. This does have, as you can see, decent knockback, which is going to make that useful against those vampires. There we go. Let's switch over to the Toxic Flask. That's something that's, you know, literally at the level that these guys are at. So you can see, actually, this is actually quite powerful. And I think when I originally got this, I didn't have, you know, the gear for it. You have to have, you know, obviously your magic gear to make this useful enough so that you can throw enough of them to get everybody. You know what? At this point, I think I'm rocking powerful enough weapons. We can go and fight one of those pillars after all. Try not to get my NPCs killed. My poor guide just died there. And we're gonna show off the powerful stuff. Funny thing about this is you can basically just throw it on the ground, the Toxic Flask. I don't know if anybody saw the threw it on the ground video, but you can basically just throw this, you know, where it's going to hit something. And yeah, I mean, it makes it kind of good against those guys that grab your head. Hate those guys. Because you're not going to last long when you're in a cloud of toxic gas, am I right? But yeah, retreat. Because low on health. Maybe I should use my buffs, but I don't like to waste buffs, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But you know, we're talking end game here. So let's, again, you know, I was using a Solar Eclipse, a couple of Solar Eclipse weapons. Well, one against the Solar Eclipse enemies. Let's use the enemies I get from this pillar, or the weapons I get from this pillar against this pillar. Am I right? So you can see, I mean, this is a relatively slow homing weapon, but these guys aren't too fast anyway. And yeah, just the damage per second is very powerful. But let's switch to the Nebula Blaze. And that's going to take these guys out before I even really see them, mostly. Because it just moves faster. And that's really perfect against the head grabber guys. Because we don't want them getting anywhere near us, so this is where, you know, invasion events and that kind of stuff, you might want to use this one. I would say, you know, against bosses and, you know, I guess mini bosses as well during certain events like Frost Moon and that kind of stuff. You might want to use the Nebula Blaze instead, or the Nebula Arcanum, sorry. And I mean, the other weapons will work quite well against the pillars as well. Obviously, normally you wouldn't have the last prism when you're fighting the pillars, unless you've already done it. In fact, you wouldn't have these weapons against this particular pillar, but... Okay, so, just to show you, you know, that's not doing a ton of damage against a large single target. I guess it's doing all right, but... oh, there we go. See? Okay, yeah, that did plenty well enough. You know what? I'm going to have to go fight another pillar. Alright, so one last demonstration, and this is against the solar pillar that I've been wearing down here. Let's just show you how fast this thing can burn out this solar pillar, and it's literally that fast. So there you go. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now. I'm going to fight the Moon Lord. Oh, alright, the Moon Lord fight. Why not, right? The last prism your eye, Moon Lord. Last prism in the eye. Open up and say hi, Moon Lord. Last prism in the eye. I think I hit the top of the world there. There it is. That is how fast you can burn up the Moon Lord with the last prism. Dead. Dead Moon Lord. Bad Moon Lord. Dead Moon Lord. Alright. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.